and welcome to, I believe, episode 12 of the Fiber of My Being podcast. My name is Megan, and I am the host of this podcast. You can find me on Ravelry as Fiber of My Being, as well as on Instagram as Fiber of My Being. I keep forgetting that I've changed it. So I will put that information down below, and also, please check out the Ravelry group, the Fiber of My Being podcast group. Join that for some nice discussion about knitting and whatever other fiber arts you like to participate in. And as always, I'm Megan. I'm coming to you from Pennsylvania, where I live with my husband Paul and our 3 cats. And they're running around again, so they'll probably be a little distracting, but also cute. So I can't bear to put them away. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm still pretty new to this podcasting thing, so I'm sorry if I'm rambling or anything. And I'm all bundled up because it's pretty cold here today. So I should talk a little bit about my hat, because I did make this hat. This is the Ginger Slouch Beanie. It's from the book, I Can't Believe I'm Fair Isle Knitting, and I don't remember who the designer is right now, but it's the Ginger Slouch Beanie, so it's the beanie in there that's made from fingering weight yarn, and so it's got these lovely Fair Isle, here I'll take it off my head, I guess, so you can see my hat hair. It's got all these lovely Fair Isle bands, and I love the kind of color changing ribbing, not ribbon, that they always do on the hats and things in this book. And this is how I learned how to Fair Isle knit. Although some of them are more stranded knitting than Fair Isle, but with all the color changes in this, I would call this a Fair Isle style knit. And I'm going to put it back on my head now, because I'm cold. But it's just a nice, lightweight, slouchy beanie. It's just warm enough for me inside right now. So that's what I'm wearing. I did knit this myself. I'm also wearing a knitted cardigan, but I did not knit this myself. I got it from the store. So I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but I obsess over knitwear in stores almost as much as I obsess over hand knit stuff, because I want to get all of the knitwear that I see so I can figure out how to make it myself. So I don't know if I'm the only weird one like that, but yeah, that's definitely something that I tend to do. So let me now talk about my week in review. It's been more than a week, I guess, because I filmed the last podcast on Christmas Eve, I believe. I think that's what I did. Yes. But so I've been holding off filming. Sorry, it's winter. My throat's getting a little sore sometimes. I've been holding off with filming the next episode because I've kind of been in a bit of a knitting funk. I haven't really been doing much knitting since Christmas, and I don't really know why. It's not like we've been busy lots of places and that's kept me from knitting. I've mostly just been home, but for some reason I haven't felt like knitting. Maybe I just needed to take a bit of a holiday from knitting, which is weird because I really enjoyed knitting, but I had a little bit of a break, and it's been nice. During that break, though, I did spend a lot of time spinning on the wheel, so I do have a few finished objects because of that, which is nice, but not much knitting got done this week at all. In fact, of my 3 finished objects that I have, none of them are actually knitting. One is crochet, and I'm very excited to show you that. But the other 2 are spinning, and that's all. I haven't finished any knitting this week. But I have recently got my some of my knitting mojo back over the past few days since the new year started. And there's probably some reasons why I've gotten my knitting mojo back, and I'm very, very excited to talk about that very soon. But yeah, I just want to do a little recap about the few things that I did manage to do over the holidays. So mostly Paul and I just stayed in. We had some family visit. My family's actually really busy, so they're going to visit soon, and we might visit his family soon, but his sisters visited, and that's about it. We had a friend up on Christmas Day, and yeah, so it's been a really low-key Christmas, which is nice because since Paul is a pastor, he has not a very low-key time leading up to Christmas, so we've just kind of been relaxing. We got a new board game, and Paul's been wanting to play it like every day, so we've just been relaxing, and it's been really nice. But somebody gave us a present of, they gave us 2 buttons for the first night here in State College where we live. So it's events that start on New Year's Eve and I guess run through into New Year's Day. And so they got us buttons that allow us to get into all of the indoor attractions there, because there's like all these ice sculptures outside and everything. It's pretty cool, but there's also a lot of stuff happening inside. But we only really went to one inside thing, and that was to the ice skating rink. That was a great time and a terrible time all at the same time, because I haven't been ice skating in probably 10 years, and Paul hasn't been ice skating since even longer. And Paul is really more of a land dweller. He's very sure-footed on land, but he had a little bit of trouble at the ice rink. And I had a little bit of trouble adjusting to the ice because I hadn't been ice skating in so long. But I did manage to adjust, and I skated many, many times around the ice rink without falling at all. And Paul skated a little bit on the ice rink and also didn't fall, but he knew when to call it quits. So that was fun. And then we just kind of crashed after coming home from that. So it was just low-key way to bring the New Year in. So it was pretty fun. And then I forget when it happened. It was whenever Paul's sisters were visiting. I think it was before New Year's, but they were visiting, and I got a notification on my phone that a YouTube video had been posted, and it was from Katie of Inside Number 23, and she was posting a video announcing her next knit-along / crochet-along, her next cowl, and I was so excited when I saw that video because I saw that she had a Harry Potter cowl going on before I ever came to her podcast. Like, it was over before I discovered her podcast. And I was really kind of sad about that because I want to knit all the Harry Potter things. And I would have loved to participate in a knit-along like that. And I missed it. But she's having another one, and it's a year long, and I'm so excited. So I think that helped get my knitting mojo back a bit. So I'll talk a little bit about what I've already started for the cowl in a little bit, and also what I'm hoping to knit for the cowl. So without further ado, I think I will jump into the knitting. And by knitting, I mean not knitting, because I didn't finish any knitting projects this week. But I did finish a crochet project. That's right. This is my 2016 temperature blanket, in which each row represents one day's temperature. And we devised a sort of temperature range to tell us what color corresponds to which ranges of temperatures. And I was really hoping that I could catch up and finish this before too long. And I did. This is actually December here, so we actually, I don't know if you can tell very well, but this last row here is actually not light blue, it's light green, which means we had a slight warming up before we went back into below freezing temperatures. So I finished it on New Year's Eve, and I immediately started crocheting the black border that goes around it. It's just a simple single crochet border. I figured I'd start that right away. Well, after I sewed in the last few ends. Because if I didn't start it right away, then this blanket would probably sit around borderless for a while. So I started it. I didn't finish it on New Year's Eve, but I think I finished it New Year's Day, because I decided after I'd gone once around on New Year's Eve that I wanted to do a second round just to make it look a little thicker and nicer. So it's all done, and I am going to put a clip of the whole blanket stretched out across our entire couch at the beginning of this video, because I really can't fit it all in one shot even. So, but it's massive and it stretches the entire length of our couch, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I just crocheted this in Red Heart with a size I hook, because I got a nice ergonomic hook to help make these long rows a little less painful. So it's all done, and it's massive and so warm. So so then Paul and I talked about what to do this year, because I know that he probably wants me to track our local temperatures again, because he's a weather nerd like that, and I respect him for that. But I don't have it in me to do another blanket. This was huge and really time consuming, and such a big long-term project was just really draining on me because I couldn't finish it any faster. So I talked to Paul. I haven't started this yet, even though it's the new year, but we agreed that maybe I will try to crochet a temperature scarf instead, so that there's a lot less width. And so each day's rows are really easy, and to make it something a bit more wearable for him, we might go with more muted colors rather than the bright in-your-face rainbow colors, so that it looks a little more classic and a bit more wearable for Paul's sense of style. So we're thinking of going and looking for some muted colored yarns for that project. So I haven't started it yet, but with scarf rows, it's really not going to take that long to catch up. So I think I can be okay with that concept. So more updates about that next time I podcast. Now for my spinning whips. I've got this basket full of yarn that I've spun. So I can't remember how many of these I had done last time, but I finished spinning up the autumnal colors yarns based on the roving that my aunt gave me along with the spinning wheel. So this is one of them. And another. This one has a lot more pink in it. And then a third one. This one's a little bit smaller. And so together, they're kind of autumn colored, and I just really like them. I like the lighter greens with the darker greens and the orange and brown. And I chain plied these up after I spun them into singles on my wheel so that I could kind of keep the colors together as much as possible because I didn't want to muddy it too much. So I'm really happy with how these turned out, and I have set the twist in them now and hung them to dry so they're all ready for knitting or something. And then I've also been spinning that lovely, one of those lovely blue and purple braids of fiber that one of our friends gave to me. And I can't remember, I don't think I had any of this finished last time. I think it was just a work in progress or a goal. It might have just even been a goal. But now I have 1, 2, and 3 skeins of this lovely, lovely yarn. I am so in love with the colors, and I 2-plied this one because in this case I really kind of, excuse these yarns, these are just here to help keep it together, keep the skein from getting all tangled. But I really actually wanted to see some of this barber pulling in my yarn, which is why I did a 2-ply instead of chain plying it like the other one. So I can't quite remember which one came first. One of these yarns, I think this one was the first one I spun up. I don't know. I could definitely tell when I was looking at them at first which one I had done most recently because it got more and more fine as I went along, and I think that it was this one that's the last one. So it's pretty fine. This one has a little more of that light blue in it, and I love that. And this one has a lot more. And so I'm really excited about this being partially done. I say partially because I still have another braid. This is from one braid, 3 skeins of fiber or yarn, and so I still have another lovely, lovely braid of fiber to spin up. I was saving this to start spinning it at the Spinners Guild meeting last night, but then I didn't go to it because it was raining and cold and icky, and I didn't feel like dragging my spinning wheel from the parking lot to the building in that sort of weather. So I just stayed home, which sad, but I can start spinning that other braid of fiber into these lovely skeins of yarn. And I should mention, I haven't actually set the twist in these yet. I was waiting until I had a whole braid of fiber to set the twist in them, but I have one now, and I don't know why I haven't set the twist. Probably just because I don't want to get my hands all dried and cracked when I'm soaking the yarn. But I will set the twist in this soon, and I'm just really happy with how this turned out. It's so nice and squishy and soft, and I'm really proud of having made this. I'm always proud when I finish a knit, but spinning is really giving me a whole new level of pride. So I'm excited to keep it up. So those are my only finished objects. I do have some works in progress in various states of progression because some of them I didn't really work on that much. Like this one. This is my Heather shawl, which is a Faroese style shawl by Suzanne Fish. And I have knit it just a little, maybe a couple of rows, which you can't really tell because I only did a couple rows. But I thought I'd include it anyway because I really had trouble getting myself to knit this week in general, so any amount of progress is good progress. And this is knit in Bernat Baby Softy. It's a DK weight yarn, and it's this lovely pale yellow color. And so I'm just going to keep chugging away at this slowly. It's always slow progress with this because the pattern's got so many mistakes that it's really complicated to knit. Excuse me. I've been fighting off a sneeze the entire time I started talking about that shawl. So, it's that time of year. Okay, so I won't belabor the shawl too much because I didn't really get much done on that. But next up in my owl bag is Paul's socks. These are the vanilla sock with gusset and choice of heel. The pattern is by Joe Tor, and I'm knitting them in Mountain Colors hand-dyed yarn. It's 90% superwash merino and 10% nylon, and this is the pine cone colorway, which again, in this light, it looks really like purple and orange, but these are all browns. It's just different shades of brown, which I figured Paul would really like because he's a brown kind of person. So I have made some decent progress on this. Actually, kind of too much progress because I knit a little bit further than I was supposed to before starting the gusset increases. So I need to rip back a few rows and start the gusset increases. So these have been on hold for a little bit just because I don't like ripping back on magic loop, so I'm kind of building up the energy that it takes to rip back. So I'm pretty happy with how these are turning out. Paul is too, and since they're toe up, he's been able to try them on as I go, and they're fitting him really well right now. So I'm excited to keep working on these. This is my first toe-up sock, and my first two-at-a-time toe-up sock. So, excited about that. And then next up is also a project for Paul, which has also seen a little bit of progress, but not that much. It's in my lovely bat bag. I love these bats so much. And this is Paul's balaclava. The pattern is the Balaclava Ulan Cap by the New England Seafarers Mission, and I'm knitting it in Cascade 220 Superwash in this light gray color, and it's just a simple 2x2 rib. It's a free pattern, so I'm not giving anything away. So I just, I've been making some progress on it. This is actually a really good thing to knit when we're driving somewhere at night, because Paul's usually driving, and so I can knit this in the car in the dark because it's just knit 2, purl 2 the whole way around. But I stopped knitting it because I had to pull up the pattern on my computer and see how far I have to knit before I do the next step, and my computer was giving me trouble, so I haven't looked it up yet. But I am making progress with it. I know Paul wants me to make faster progress because it's cold and he wants to keep his face warm. So hopefully, maybe I can really focus on this now and get it done. That would be nice. But another thing that I've done, well, last week I mentioned that I had decided to frog several things. So I did frog all of those things. They are now balls of yarn, which is nice. But since that podcast, I've made another decision about frogging, and that was I decided to frog the border on my Print O the Wave stole. So this was this stole that you knit the middle first, and then you knit on a border. And it was becoming increasingly clear to me that I was probably just going to run out of yarn before the end of the border. And I really love this green yarn, and I really want to be able to knit the whole thing out of this yarn. So what I decided to do was to frog it back, so now all the border stitches are on the needle, and it looks so lumpy and funny. Kind of looks like a cocoon or something, or a weird caterpillar. But I have frogged it the whole way back to the beginning of the border. And I have the beginning border stitches just held on a needle here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh this and keep close track of how much yarn I'm using as I try to knit the border again, so that I can find out sooner whether I'm going to make it or not, because I can figure out how many grams each repeat of the border uses. And the thing that's making me think I might be able to squeak by now is that I went down a couple of needle sizes for the border so that my gauge will be a little bit tighter, because the border was kind of flaring out just a little too. The stitches were really loose, and I didn't think that it needed to be that loose. And I figure if I go down a couple of needle sizes, maybe it'll give me just what I need to tip the scales in my favor and let me finish the border with this yarn. So I've been working on frogging it this week, so I have made progress, but it's kind of reverse progress. So yeah, I'm hoping to cast the border on again soon, and start trying to knit at it. It's probably going to take me a while, but I really want to have this shawl done. It's so pretty, and I want it in my life and on my shoulders. So yeah. And I can't remember if I mentioned the pattern for this one. It's the Print O' the Wave Stole by Yarny Jang, and I'm knitting it in Shirsty Cat Designs Lovely Lace Weight yarn in her Springtime colorway, which is just that lovely tonal green, and I love it. I want the whole shawl to be made out of it, and that's why I bit the bullet and frogged the border this week. So that was kind of tough, but I was wearing nice cozy socks, which made it a little better. You can check out that photo on Instagram. So, another thing that helped me get back into knitting this week was, as I mentioned, the Harry Potter cowl starting. And so I've already started a couple of projects for it, and I forgot to take this out of the plastic bag, so there's going to be some crinkling. But this doesn't look like much, but I have started this. The pattern I'm following for this is the Rigsby Cloche by Sarah Sipe, and so it's a cloche style hat, which I picked because ever since I saw Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in theaters, I've just wanted to knit a lovely 1920s style cloche. And there's this hat that Tina wears in the movie that I really wanted to try and recreate for the cowl, because Katie said that both Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts projects are welcome. So I figured I'd go for a Fantastic Beasts one. So I'm knitting the brim of the hat right now, and this is actually going to be the inside of the brim, because it's a free pattern, so I'm not giving anything away. But in the pattern, the inside of the brim is actually meant to be knitted in a contrasting color, so that when the brim is folded up, like you often do with cloches, there's just this nice little pop of contrast. But because of the way Tina's cloche looks in the movie, I'm just knitting the inside of my brim in black, which is the same color that's going to be used for the outside, and it's just going to be a double thick brim. I thought about just starting straight from the outside of the brim, but then I figured when the brim's folded up, it'll be nice to have the knit side of the stockinette facing too, so I figured I'd do the double brim anyway. So I just cast this on last night actually, so I've actually made quite a bit of progress for just a couple hours work, and not even that strenuous work. Where did I put that? Here we go. And then on Tina's cloche in the movie, there's a band of gray right after the brim. And so I'm going to use this marled dark gray yarn. It's not, the band in the movie is solid gray, and this isn't quite solid, but I think it'll be okay. I think it'll turn out looking nice. So I'm going to use that for the band. And then I'm thinking what I'm going to do is that once this is done, I want to just lightly full or felt it by hand, just by like dunking it in hot water and then cold water, just to kind of get the stitches to close up just a little bit, because in the movie it is a felted cloche, and I don't want to make a felted cloche because, well, this is going to be a normal size for my head and I don't want it to get too small. But I just kind of want to bring out the fuzziness a bit. So I think once I'm done knitting it, I will full or felt it. I don't have a whole lot of experience with hand felting, but I'm going to try. So I'm really excited about this. That's one of the top things on my list of things to knit for this Harry Potter cowl. So, and then I cast on one more thing for the Harry Potter cowl. And that is this. Doesn't look like much. I also just cast this on last night. And I cast this on first, and then I got really excited about Tina's cloche. And so I spent most of my time working on that. But I want to try and have something to enter for every month's drawing. So I figured that the cloche will be one of the quicker things for me to knit, and this is going to take me a bit longer. So I can work on that while I'm working on this and try and finish this up for a later month. And what this is, if you can't tell, it's a lovely maroon color, and I got to pair with it this lovely golden yellow. So can you guess what I'm knitting? That's right, it's a Gryffindor scarf. Now, I'm not just knitting a Gryffindor scarf because that's Harry's house and everyone wants a Gryffindor scarf. I really am a Gryffindor. If I were something else, I would knit that house. And I'm always surprised that I get sorted into Gryffindor because I don't feel like a Gryffindor. I guess I kind of feel like Neville like that. Like, I'm not really Gryffindor material, but for some reason, every single time that I take the quiz, I get Gryffindor without even trying. Like, I'm actively trying to get something else because I think that I'm something else, and I always get Gryffindor. So I've decided just to embrace my true Gryffindor self, and so I'm knitting a Gryffindor scarf, and I'm knitting it in a tube so that both sides are the right side, and I don't remember which pattern I'm using for this because there are lots of these out there, but this is more of a Prisoner of Azkaban style scarf, so it's going to be mostly maroon with little double bands of yellow interspersed. It's not going to be the ones where there's like blocks of color that are approximately equal. I'm going to knit one of those later, but this right now is the more stripy scarf. And I'm knitting this just out of Red Heart because I had the colors for it already and I need to use it up. So I'm really excited about those two Harry Potter projects. Can you tell? So those are all of my works in progress today. Because everything else that I've got on the needles I have been neglecting. But I am super excited to cast on lots of things, especially Harry Potter related things. So I just wanted to talk about the cowl for just a little because I want to kind of talk about what other sorts of things I am hoping to knit for this cow. So I already told you about that Gryffindor scarf, the stripy Prisoner of Azkaban one, and I told you about Tina's cloche that I'm going to be knitting, well, that I am knitting. But besides that, I have a list in front of me. I have at least 12 things on my list, and it might change as I discover new patterns and things. But I was really struck by Newt's Hufflepuff scarf in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It was very like tonal and faded Hufflepuff colors, and I just loved that. And I would love to knit one of those. But I'm not a Hufflepuff. I'm a Gryffindor. So is my husband. I'm thinking of knitting one scarf for him and one scarf for me, so whichever ones we each like better, we will get. But so we're both Gryffindors, even though we both feel like we shouldn't be Gryffindors. But we keep getting sorted into Gryffindor. So I was looking at Newt's lovely scarf in that movie and thinking, I want to try and make a Gryffindor version of that scarf. A nice tonal, faded Gryffindor scarf. So I'm hoping to do that. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find colors that I like for that scarf, or if I will have to dye them myself. But I'm going to figure out some way to find some nice faded tonal colors and make the more blocky version of the scarf like what Newt wears in the movie, only for Gryffindor. I think it'd be really cool to see other people knitting scarves like that with the other house colors too, because I just loved the look of it, so faded and kind of vintagey. Oh, I got knitting stuck on my foot. There we go. Yeah, so it looks so faded and vintagey, and I just think it would look really cool to see like a nice all the other house colors in those scarves. I know that the faded red and yellow is going to look great for Gryffindor, but I think also the Slytherin colors and the Hufflepuff, there's already a Hufflepuff scarf. The Ravenclaw colors, I think, would look great in faded scarf versions also. So I'm gonna mull over all of that. But I definitely want to knit a faded Newt style Gryffindor scarf. I think that'd be awesome. Next on my list is I want to knit a sorting hat. Some friends of mine and I are going to be having a Harry Potter type party. It's actually a party to watch and celebrate Star Kid Potter, which, if you've never heard of them, they have these musicals on YouTube called A Very Potter Musical and A Very Potter Sequel and A Very Potter Senior Year, and they have a bunch of other non-Harry Potter musicals too, which I highly recommend. But most of my college friends, I wouldn't have had the college friends I did if it weren't for A Very Potter Musical, because we all bonded over it and we love it so much. So we're gonna have a reunion party this summer and like watch the musicals and just have a great time. And so we're talking about all the Harry Potter themed things that we could do for the party. And so I think I want to knit a sorting hat so that we can have our own mini sorting ceremony. And if I have the time, I might even knit a scarf. So in the musical, besides the sorting hat, which is a puppet, they have really good puppets in these musicals too. Besides the sorting hat puppet, there's also a puppet. It's a bit of a parody on Harry Potter, so they make fun of it while also being total fans of it. So they decided that there's also this scarf that kids have to try on after the sorting hat, and it's called the Scarf of Sexual Preference, and it's this rainbow scarf named Scarfy, and I just think it'd be really cool to try and knit a Scarfy puppet. But I don't know if that would really be able to be included for the Harry Potter cal because it's a Very Potter musical, not Harry Potter, but since I was talking about the Sorting Hat, I just figured I'd mention that too. And then also, because of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I really want to knit myself a niffler stuffy. I found a pattern, and it's made out of fingering weight yarn, but Katie has a requirement that anything that's going to be entered should use 50 grams of yarn. So I'm thinking of bumping it up to a worsted weight, which I think will probably end up using 50 grams of yarn, and we'll end up with a bigger niffler, because I think the one in the pattern is more like tiny like this, and I want like a life-size niffler. So I found a pattern for that, and I can't remember who it's by right now, but it's the top niffler pattern on Ravelry right now, and I'm super excited about it. So I definitely want to knit that. And then, now that I'm into sock knitting, I think it's finally time for me to knit some Hermione's Everyday Socks, especially with this cal going on now. I can knit socks and have them be Harry Potter too. So I think that'd be pretty cool. And then I also want to try to knit, there's these House Pride socks that are making the rounds too, and they have like house slogans along the side, and the house mascot along the front of the sock, and they're a bit taller socks. And so once I have a few more socks under my belt, I think I'd like to try and knit some Gryffindor Pride socks, because I'm a Gryffindor. But I think it'd be really cool to knit all of the socks too. I just feel kind of weird wearing another house's gear, because I'm not that house, and I don't want people to think that I am and get all excited because they're in that house too, and then I'm like, oh no, actually I'm a Gryffindor. So yeah. And then, this might be a little ambitious, but I would like to knit 2 Weasley sweaters this year. One for me and one for Paul, in different colors, because that's what Mrs. Weasley does. So I'm hoping to get those started soon, because they could take me a while. Additionally, I saw an idea from Pinterest. It's this chart that somebody used for embroidery, and it's this sort of like Christmassy stranded style chart of all these different Harry Potter kind of references. There's snitches, I think, and there's a stag Patronus, and there's Hedwig at the top, and there's broomsticks and wands, and I can't remember everything that's in it, but it just looks really cool. It's like a Christmassy style stranded knit, only it's for embroidery. But I figured the chart could be adapted to make into knitting, and I think it'd be really cool to try and knit that onto the front panel of a sweater, and then knit the rest of the sweater and have this Harry Potter style Christmas sweater. But there's not an actual pattern for it. So I feel like I need to have a couple sweaters under my belt before I try to kind of throw that together. So we'll see if that happens, but it looks really cool, and I would love to make it. And I will try to find a picture of it for next week. So yeah. And then, as if this isn't enough, I would like to try and knit Hermione's lovely gray cabled and lace hat that she wears at one point in the movies. There's a pattern called Hermione Hearts Ron or Loves Ron or something. So if you can go there to see what sort of hat I'm talking about. I'm not actually going to use that pattern because it's designed for sport weight yarn, and I want to knit mine in worsted because that's what I have. So there's another pattern that's adapted for worsted. So I actually have the yarn sitting in the basket next to me right now, and I almost cast it on last night, but I need the same needles as I have as I'm using for the cloche, so I can't start it yet. So I'll probably cast that on relatively quickly after I'm done with the cloche. And then There's also this lovely stranded Fair Isle type, I can't remember if it's actually Fair Isle, but it's definitely stranded, type scarf that Hermione wears at some point. Hermione's scarf or something like that. There's a pattern for it on Ravelry, and I would love to knit that too. And then I was doing lots of searches after I discovered the Niffler patterns, because I really kind of wanted to knit some more Fantastic Beasts. And I found one that there's no patterns for it online, but I think that I could maybe come up with one myself. What I want to make is a fwooper. They're mentioned in the Fantastic Beasts book, and they're this type of bird. And they're kind of like shaped like a balloon with this long tail at the end, and I can't remember what's distinctive about them right now, but they come in lots of bright colors. There's one briefly shown in Fantastic Beasts. It's kind of like flying through the side of a shot when Newt's pointing out the graphorns, the only breeding pair of graphorns left in the world. There's this pink bird that flies like along the side of the shot, and that's a fwooper. And if you Google it, you can find lots of pictures of fwoopers. So I want to maybe try to design a fwooper stuffy, like a life-size type fwooper stuffy. I think that'd be awesome. And I would love to knit even more Fantastic Beasts. But there's not that many patterns out there right now, and I'm still not the best at designing stuffies. So I think I'm going to stick with the fwooper because it's a relatively simple shape right now. I found a pattern for a bow truckle, but that's very complicated because they're so stringy, and yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen just yet. But yeah, have I rambled enough about Harry Potter? You can never ramble enough about Harry Potter. That was a trick question. But in case you can't tell, I'm super excited for Katie's Harry Potter knit-along, and I am already participating, and I'm just so excited to keep going. I'm gonna knit all the Harry Potter, everything. So if you have any suggestions about Harry Potter related patterns that I didn't mention, I would love to hear about them, because this is just the list that I came up based on the patterns that I found with just a cursory search. So I would love to hear about more things, because you can never have too many Harry Potter knits. Let's face it. So I think I've rambled enough now for one day. So I will just bid you goodbye, and I'm gonna get back to some Harry Potter knitting, and I'm super excited. So happy knitting! Bye!